He was a man who came into their lives quietly but made a big difference. Wearing a navy blue shirt and with black hair neatly combed, he looked like someone who carried responsibility on his shoulders. He wasn't their biological father, but from day one he took on the role fully. The kids called him Dad. The son, a boy with blonde hair and a navy blue hoodie, was shy at first. He wasn't sure how to feel about this new man in the house. His sister, a lively girl with the same blonde hair, always dressed in bright clothes like her yellow dress that day, was curious but cautious. They had lost their real father years before, and their mother had found this man who promised to be there for them. The man worked hard to earn their trust. Every morning he woke up early, made breakfast, helped with homework, and drove them to school. He never missed a chance to cheer for his son during Little League games or read bedtime stories to his daughter, no matter how tired he was. His black hair often looked messy by the end of the day, but his smile was always genuine when he was with them. At school, the son wore his navy blue hoodie like armor. He was quiet but loved sports. His father would watch from the sidelines, clapping and encouraging him every time he scored a goal or ran a good lap. The daughter loved dressing up, and her favorite was the yellow dress she wore that sunny afternoon when her dad took her to the park. She held his hand tightly, feeling safe. The man was not just a stepdad to them. He was a hero in small ways. When the son fell and scraped his knee, it was his father who cleaned the wound gently and promised it would heal fast. When the daughter was scared of the dark, he stayed by her side until she fell asleep. Inside the house, his presence filled the empty spaces that had once felt cold and lonely. Their mother watched them with relief and hope. She knew the man wasn't perfect, but he tried harder than anyone else. She saw how he treated the children like they were his own flesh and blood. But as time passed, things started to change. The children grew older, and the easy closeness they had at first began to fade. The son started spending more time with his friends, sometimes forgetting to say good morning. The daughter became quieter, more withdrawn, and stopped sharing stories about her day. He noticed the change but kept trying. He asked gently if everything was okay, but their answers were short or avoided. The warmth in their eyes was replaced by something distant. He couldn't understand why the love they once showed was slipping away. One evening after dinner, he sat in the living room watching his son play video games. The boy didn't look up or smile. The man reached out, touched his shoulder and said, "I'm here if you want to talk." The son nodded but didn't say anything more. The daughter stayed in her room longer these days. She wore her yellow dress less often and preferred quiet time alone. He tried to find moments to connect, but she seemed to pull away. The house felt bigger and emptier than before. The mother noticed the tension too. She felt caught between the man she loved and the children who were slipping from his reach. Family dinners became silent meals. Conversations stopped before they began. Despite the growing distance, the man never gave up. He still woke up early, still made breakfast, still drove them to school. He smiled when he saw small signs of warmth. A quick hug, a shared joke. But those moments were fewer. He wondered if being a stepfather was always like this, if no matter how much love you give, some walls remain unbroken. But he stayed patient, believing in the family he wanted to build. This was the beginning of a story not many see, the quiet love of a man who gave everything to children who started to forget him. The man kept hoping things would get better, but the distance between him and the kids grew each day. The son, wearing his navy blue hoodie, began spending more time locked in his room or outside with friends. His blonde hair sometimes covered his eyes when he slouched over his phone. The daughter, once so full of life in her yellow dress, now preferred to be alone, reading quietly by the window. He tried to join their worlds, asking about school, friends, and their dreams. But answers were short or missing. "I'm fine," the son would say without looking up. The daughter would simply smile and walk away. The man felt like an outsider in his own home. One afternoon, he watched the son walk past him without saying a word. The boy's eyes avoided his gaze, and the silence spoke louder than any words. The man felt his heart sink. He remembered when the son used to run into his arms, full of excitement to show him something new. Now, it was as if those memories belonged to someone else. The daughter didn't come to the dinner table one night. She stayed in her room, her yellow dress folded on the chair. The man knocked softly and asked if she was okay. She said she was just tired, but he could hear sadness in her voice. The mother sat beside the man one evening, sharing her worries. She said the kids were changing, and she didn't know how to reach them anymore. The man nodded, feeling the weight of the family slipping through his fingers. He thought back to the early days when they laughed together, played games, and shared secrets. Those moments were rare now, but he kept hoping for more. He began planning small surprises, movie nights, favorite dinners, trips to the park, all to remind the kids he was there for them. One weekend, he invited the son and daughter to the park. The son wore his navy blue hoodie, still shy but willing to come along. The daughter put on her yellow dress, her smile faint but genuine. They walked under the warm sun, the man holding the daughter's hand gently, while the son kicked a ball ahead. They talked about simple things, the son's school project, the daughter's favorite book. For a moment, it felt like old times. The man smiled inside, knowing these small sparks were hope. But the next days brought the usual silence again. The son retreated to his room, the daughter stayed quiet. The man felt the struggle of being a father who was loved in some moments but ignored in many others. He wondered if the kids saw him as just someone filling a space, not truly their dad. Sometimes he heard whispers from neighbors or friends, asking if the kids called him dad or if he was just the new man. Those words hurt, but never stopped him from loving them. The man understood that family is complicated. Love isn't always simple or easy. It could be full of joy and pain at the same time. He reminded himself every day that his role was to stay, to love without conditions. Even when the kids ignored him or acted distant, he held on to the hope that someday they would see him as more than just a stepfather. He wanted them to know he was there because he cared, not because he had to be. In the quiet moments when the house was still, he prayed for a chance to be part of their lives fully. He dreamed of a day when the son would smile at him without hesitation, and the daughter would hug him tight. This was his reality, a man caught between love and rejection, trying to hold the family together even when it felt like they were falling apart. The man tried everything he could think of to bring the family back together. He made dinners with their favorite foods and asked about their days, hoping for a real conversation. But the silence stayed heavy in the house. The son in his navy blue hoodie often ignored him, and the daughter in her yellow dress seemed to drift farther away each day. One evening, the man sat in the living room, watching his son play video games. The boy's blonde hair fell over his forehead as he focused, but he didn't look up or smile when the man spoke. "Do you want some help with homework?" The man asked softly. The son barely nodded and kept playing. It hurt, but the man didn't give up. The daughter was even harder to reach. She stopped wearing her yellow dress and spent more time in her room with the door closed. Sometimes he knocked and asked if she wanted to talk, but she said she was fine and asked him to leave. The man felt like he was losing both of them, even though he loved them more than anything. Their mother watched the tension grow. She didn't say much, but the man could see the sadness in her eyes. Sometimes she blamed herself, wondering if she had made a mistake by bringing the man into their lives. But he knew she still loved him and wanted the family to be happy. One afternoon, the man tried a new approach. He decided to take the kids out for the day, hoping a change of scenery might help. The son put on his navy blue hoodie, and the daughter wore a soft yellow dress she hadn't worn in months. They went to a small park near their home. At first, the kids were quiet. The son kicked a ball slowly, and the daughter sat on a bench, watching birds fly. The man joined in, kicking the ball to the son and smiling when the daughter laughed at a squirrel running by. For a moment, it felt like the old days. After the park, they went for ice cream. The son ordered chocolate, and the daughter chose vanilla. The man bought an extra cone just for himself. They sat on a bench and ate slowly, the sun warming their faces. The daughter looked at him and said, "Thanks, Dad." The man's heart lifted. It was a small moment, but it meant everything. Back at home, though, the old silence returned. The son spent more time with friends and less time talking to him. The daughter locked herself in her room again. The man felt invisible. One night, he found the son scrolling through his phone. Curiosity got the best of him, and he asked, "Do you like me as your dad?" The son didn't answer. After a long pause, he said, "You're not my real dad." It was the first time the boy said the words out loud. The man's heart ached, but he didn't show it. Instead, he said, "I'm here for you, no matter what." The daughter stayed out of these conversations. When she was around, she acted like a stranger. One afternoon, the man saw her looking at an old family photo. The picture showed her, the son, their mother, and the man smiling. The daughter touched the photo gently and then looked away quickly. The man knew the kids were struggling. Losing their real father had left a space hard to fill. He understood that love takes time and patience. Sometimes it was invisible, but he believed it was there deep inside. He kept trying day after day. Even when the kids ignored him or acted like he wasn't part of their lives, he stayed. He didn't ask for thanks or love in return. His only wish was to be their family, no matter what. The mother noticed his strength and dedication. She said quietly one night, "Thank you for loving them the way you do." The man smiled and thought about the long road ahead. He knew this was just the beginning of the real challenge. He wasn't perfect, but his love was true. And that was all he could offer: hope, patience, and a place for the kids to come back to when they were ready. The man felt the distance growing between him and the kids more each day. The son, with his navy blue hoodie, started spending most of his time outside or in his room, while the daughter, once bright in her yellow dress, now kept to herself and spoke very little. He tried to keep the family close, but it was getting harder. One evening, the mother asked him if he felt like he was being pushed away. He didn't want to admit it, but deep inside, he felt like he was losing them. He remembered the early days when the kids ran to him after school, eager to share stories and hugs. Now they barely looked at him. The son was distant and cold, and the daughter seemed afraid to show her feelings. The man decided to have an honest talk with them. One afternoon, he sat with the son on the couch. "I want to understand how you feel," he said quietly. The son looked down and said, "Sometimes I don't know if you're really my dad." It wasn't easy for him to say. The man nodded and replied, "I may not be your real dad, but I love you like one. I'm here for you whenever you need me." The son didn't say much, but the man saw a flicker of something, maybe hope or confusion. Later, he talked to his daughter. She wore her yellow dress again, but she looked tired. "Do you want to tell me what's on your mind?" he asked softly. She shook her head and whispered, "I miss my real dad." He felt a sharp pain but smiled gently. "I miss him too," he said honestly. "But I'm here now, and I want to help you." She looked at him for a moment and then leaned her head on his shoulder. These small moments gave the man hope. He knew healing would take time. Love wasn't about perfect days or easy answers. It was about being patient, even when it hurt. One night, he overheard the kids talking in whispers. The son said he wanted to remove him from family pictures, and the daughter agreed quietly. The man's heart broke. He realized they were trying to erase him from their story. He didn't say anything then, but inside he felt invisible. Years of love and effort seemed to vanish in those whispered words. Still, he didn't give up. He knew some wounds took time to heal. He kept showing up for them, making breakfast, helping with homework, and cheering quietly from the sidelines at their events. Sometimes the kids glanced at him but quickly looked away. The mother saw the struggle and felt torn. She wanted her children to accept the man who loved them, but she'd also understood their pain. The house was full of silent fights and quiet sadness. Despite it all, the man stayed strong. He remembered the promise he made, to love and protect the kids no matter what. Even if they tried to forget him, he would not forget them. He started writing letters to the kids. He never gave them directly, but left them where they could find them, on the kitchen table, on their beds, or in the car. The letters said simple things: "I love you," "I'm proud of you," and "I'm here when you're ready." One day, the daughter found a letter. She read it silently and then held it close. It was the first time she showed any sign of wanting to connect. The man smiled quietly, knowing the smallest step was still a step forward. He understood this journey was not easy, but love doesn't give up quickly. It waits and hopes, even when the world feels cold. He stayed their hero in silence, hoping the day would come when the kids would invite him fully into their lives, not just as a stepdad, but as family. The man continued to do his best to be part of the kids' lives, even when they pushed him away. The son, wearing his navy blue hoodie, seemed to be growing colder. The daughter, who sometimes wore her yellow dress, stayed quiet and distant most days. One afternoon, the man noticed the son sitting alone in his room, scrolling on his phone. He knocked softly and asked, "Do you want to talk?" The boy didn't answer, but didn't tell him to leave either. The man waited quietly, hoping for a sign. Later, the son said, "You're not really my dad." It wasn't said with anger, but with a simple honesty that cut deep. The man nodded and said, I know that, but I'm here for you no matter what." The daughter was harder to reach. She often stayed in her room, avoiding conversations. The man tried small gestures, leaving her favorite snacks or notes that said he cared. Once he found her looking at old photos of her real father, tears in her eyes. He didn't want to disturb her, but wished he could take away her pain. The mother saw the sadness too. She worried about the distance growing in the house and wondered if things would ever go back to the way they were. Sometimes she whispered to the man, "They don't see how much you love them." The man didn't expect the kids to accept him quickly. He understood that love was not easy after loss. He kept trying even when it felt like he was invisible. One weekend, he planned a family day, hoping to bring smiles back. The son put on his navy blue hoodie, and the daughter wore her yellow dress. They went to the park, played games, and ate ice cream. For a little while, the house felt warmer inside the man's heart. But the next days were quiet again. The son went back to spending most time away, and the daughter returned to her room. The man realized that healing wasn't a straight path. It had ups and downs. He talked with the kids honestly. "I love you," he said. "Even if you don't feel the same now, I'm not going anywhere." The son listened but didn't answer. The daughter nodded once. He kept showing love quietly, fixing things around the house, helping with school, and being there when they needed someone. Sometimes they noticed, sometimes they didn't. The man's hope was in small moments. A quick smile from the son, a soft hug from the daughter, a shared joke. Those moments were rare but precious. He knew they were hurting and confused, trying to find their way without their real father. He wanted to be the person they could trust, even if it took years. The mother often thanked him for his patience and love. She believed in him and hoped the kids would see him as family one day. Even when the kids seemed to erase him from their lives, the man stayed their hero silently, loving without conditions. He dreamed of the day they would call him Dad, not because he asked, but because they wanted to. This was the story of a man who gave everything, even when it was hard, because love was worth the wait. The man kept holding on even as the silence in the house grew louder. The son, wearing his navy blue hoodie, seemed more distant each day. The daughter, who sometimes wore her yellow dress, had stopped talking about her feelings. The man felt like a stranger in his own home. He continued to show love quietly. He made breakfast every morning, helped with homework, and sat on the sidelines at games and school events. Sometimes the son glanced his way, but the look was brief and unsure. The daughter smiled once in a while, but mostly kept to herself. One day, the man found the son looking at old family photos on his phone. The pictures showed happier times when they were closer. The man wanted to talk about those memories, but didn't want to upset the boy. Instead, he said softly, "Those were good days, huh?" The son looked up, surprised. He nodded slowly but didn't say more. The man hoped this was a start. The daughter still kept her distance but showed small signs of trust. One afternoon, she let the man braid her hair while she wore her yellow dress. It was quiet but meaningful. The man smiled inside, holding on to these moments. The mother noticed these small changes too. She thanked the man for not giving up and said she believed the kids would come around with time. The man knew healing wasn't easy. The kids had lost their real father, and that loss made it hard for them to fully accept him. But he believed love could grow slowly, like a seed needing time to bloom. He kept writing letters to the kids, leaving them where they could find them. Sometimes the son read them quietly, and the daughter held them close. The man wished he could talk to them more but understood they needed space. One evening the son surprised the man by asking, "Can you come to my game tomorrow?" The man's heart lifted. He said yes immediately and promised to be there. The next day, the man cheered loudly from the sidelines. The son noticed and smiled briefly at him. The man knew this small connection was important. The daughter also started spending more time around the man. She wore her yellow dress more often and even shared stories from school. The man listened carefully and felt hope growing. Though the distance was still there sometimes, the man felt the family slowly healing. He understood love wasn't always easy or perfect, but it was worth fighting for. He stayed patient, knowing the kids needed time to trust him fully. Every small smile, every shared moment was a step closer to being a family. The mother smiled more these days, feeling the warmth returning. She thanked the man quietly for staying strong and loving the kids through the hard times. The man didn't need to hear "thank you" or "I love you" all the time. His love was steady, waiting for the day the kids would call him Dad because they truly felt it. This was the quiet story of a man who never gave up, even when the road was long and full of pain. He was there, still loving, still hoping, still being their hero. The man noticed the little changes growing stronger. The son, who always wore his navy blue hoodie, started to open up a bit more. He no longer ignored his father's questions, and even smiled sometimes when they talked. The daughter, often seen in her yellow dress, began to share her day's stories without hesitation. One afternoon, the man sat with the son at the kitchen table. "How was school today?" he asked gently. The boy looked up, met his eyes, and said, "It was okay. I did good on my test." The man smiled and said, "I'm proud of you." Those simple words seemed to mean a lot. The daughter came into the room holding a drawing she made. She shyly showed it to the man. It was a picture of the three of them, the man, the son, and herself. The man felt his heart warm. He praised her and said, "This is beautiful." The mother watched these moments with hope. The house no longer felt so quiet or cold. Laughter returned in small bursts, and the family started spending time together again. The man still remembered the hard days, the times when the kids didn't want to be around him, when their words cut deep, and the feeling of being erased from their lives. But now, those days were fading slowly. One evening, the son said something that surprised the man. "Dad, can you come to my game tomorrow?" The man's heart lifted. He nodded, "Of course." The boy smiled back, a real smile. The next day, the man cheered loudly from the sidelines. The son saw him and gave a quick thumbs up. The daughter clapped from the stands, wearing her yellow dress and smiling. After the game, the son came over and said, "Thanks for coming." The man put his arm around him and said, "I wouldn't miss it." It was the first time the son called him Dad without hesitation. At home, the daughter started joining family dinners again. She told stories about her day and asked questions about her father's work. The man listened carefully, happy to be part of her world. He understood that love wasn't always easy. Sometimes it took time, patience, and many small steps to heal broken hearts. He was ready for that journey because the family was worth it. The mother told the man how proud she was of him. She said, "You stayed even when it was hard. You never gave up." Those words meant everything to him. The man knew that the kids still had questions and feelings to work through. Losing their real father was not something they could forget quickly. But he was there to support them, no matter what. He continued to write letters, leave little surprises, and be patient. Every day was a chance to grow closer, to build trust, and to show that family was more than just blood. The man's love was steady and strong. He didn't need perfect moments or grand gestures. The small signs of acceptance and love from the kids were enough. This was the story of a man who chose love over pain, patience over frustration, and hope over giving up. He was no longer invisible to the kids. He was their dad in heart and soul. The man finally felt a change that lasted longer than before. The son, wearing his navy blue hoodie, no longer avoided him. Instead, he asked questions about the man's day and shared little stories from school. The daughter, often in her yellow dress, laughed more and even invited the man to join her in activities she enjoyed. The house was warmer now. The mother smiled often and joined the man and kids in the kitchen, cooking meals and sharing moments. The silence that once filled the rooms was slowly replaced by conversations and laughter. One evening, the son came to the man and said, "Dad, thanks for always being here." The words were simple, but they meant the world. The man smiled, feeling his heart full. The daughter hugged him tightly and whispered, "I'm glad you're my dad." Those words were a dream he never thought would come true. The man remembered the hard times, the distance, the silence, the feeling of being erased. But all those moments were behind now. What mattered was the family they were becoming. He knew the journey was not over. Healing takes time and love needs to be cared for every day. But he was ready for that. He and the kids began making new memories, game nights, park trips, and quiet talks before bedtime. The son and daughter learned to trust him fully, and he became their hero not just by his actions but because they chose him. The mother felt peace she hadn't known in years. She saw her children happy and the man who never gave up. She was grateful for the family they built together. The man's story was not just about being a stepfather. It was about love that doesn't give up, even when it's hard. It was about patience and hope. He showed that family is not only about blood, but about who stays, who cares, and who loves without conditions. This story ends with a family healed and growing stronger. The man who once felt invisible was now at the heart of their lives. And if you've ever felt unseen or forgotten, remember you are not alone. Love can heal, and families can be built in many ways. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that touch the heart.